Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Logan Lynch. I'm a pelvic floor physical therapist, and every week over on Instagram, I share a video like this where I go over exercises that I prescribe my patients that week and why I chose them or who they were for. Make sure you subscribe to my channel to see these every week so we can break down why I'm choosing these movements and really go in depth on form. So in today's video, we're going to break down the 4 exercises that I gave my patients this week, talk about form tips, cues that I'm giving, the patients that I chose them for, and really what we're going for. So my goal is to help you incorporate these exercises into your routine if there's something that you want to try, or correct form that of movements that you're already doing, but give you some other things to think about, especially when it comes to more core engagement, better pelvic floor health, chance of injury. So let's get into it. The first exercise we're going to talk about is walking lunges. Now, I gave this to a client who was having bladder leakage with things like jumping, running, and sometimes lifting weights. What we found in our assessment, part of what's going on is a lack of hip stability. So her pelvis has a hard time, coordinating and working well with her core to keep everything here as stable as possible. So when she's doing lunges, I saw a lot of like forward hip shifting or hips dropping down to the side. And we started with just a normal split lunge where her feet were planted to try and learn better form with that. The benefit of adding the walking aspect is that there's a little bit more dynamic movement. So now we're getting into asking more balance, more coordination of your body once you have nailed down that split lunge stance. Now, I have a couple steps I'll do here. So when I think about walking lunges, usually what I'm trying to get people to do is find more glute strength and length. So a lot of times when people do lunges, it's very much this like forward shift of their pelvis and their knees coming way over their toes, and we're not utilizing a lot of our glutes. So our goal with these walking lunges is really to bring more length into our glutes by giving a slight hinge forward. So when I take that lunge down, I'm going to slightly hinge forward so my knee ends up stacked over about the arch of my foot, and then I'm going to stand mostly with my front leg. So when I go for that next step, I'm hinging again, dropping that back knee close to the ground, and then standing with that front leg versus letting that pelvis come forward here and I'm not super engaged through my core. I want to feel like I'm zipping up through my core as I exhale and stand through that movement. So from this angle, my feet are about hip width apart. I take it down and I'm thinking about sitting back into like a stool or a chair below me, and I stand and I step forward. Hips are level. I don't want to see this hip popping out to the side. I drop down, exhale, and stand. So you can do that body weight to start or add weights as you get comfortable with the movement, keeping your feet on railroad tracks parallel to each other the whole time, and really focusing on incorporating that wrapping, that bracing of your core. If you're not sure how to do that, check out my other videos. And then also stabilization of your glutes. So really utilizing more length through those glute muscles as we sit back, and strength when we go to stand. The next movement that I prescribed and that we're going to go over is weighted overhead marches. Overhead marches is something that I come and see on social media given as a deep core exercise. And I put it in quotes because it all depends on how you're doing it. I see this exercise a lot, but I often see it done wrong. And I'm a fitness instructor as well. And in class, I often see posture is not looking great and core engagement. It's very hard for people to understand how to brace their core in this position. So hopefully this video helps you perform this better. Now, this is for a client, again, bladder leakage. I treat a lot of bladder leakage, and she struggles with form through her spine and not allowing her pelvis to tip forward when she's doing movements like overhead presses or even running. We struggle with this arching position and lack of core engagement. When you take your arms overhead, it challenges your rib cage and your spine a little bit more, because our natural tendency when we lack strength is to do this with our spine when we go overhead. So as I press or as I take my arms overhead, if I have limited shoulder mobility, it's going to cause me to arch through my spine, and we're trying to create more stability through that spine. So keeping your ribs stacked right over your hips and utilizing your core brace. So you can do this just arms overhead or add some weights to make it more challenging, but this is what it's going to look like. So I have my weights. I'm going to press overhead. These are a little heavier than I would like. Straight overhead here. And then, right, I don't want to fall here. I want to think about my ribs and my pubic bone coming together. So I'm not just slamming my ribs down like this. I want to utilize my deep core, my lower abs, and my rib cage to come closer together. And I'm going to exhale as I lift that knee. As I do, I'm just feeling like those abdominals wrap up a little bit more, and I'm trying to just maintain that tension. So every time I step down, I'm not arching and then redoing it. I also don't want to lean back. This is often what I see done in videos of people doing this is we have no core engagement and we're just doing this and using hip flexors. We have to brace. And then overhead press is challenging us because we want to extend through that spine. And I'm taking my time and feeling that connection to my core as I lift. I often also see this movement done very fast where we're just marching really quickly. Slow it down, be intentional with that, and feel that wrapping around feeling. Again, I'm not slamming down like this, okay? The cue of bringing ribs together along with those hip bones coming together. All four corners stay, and then as I step down, I'm trying not to lose that tension. I want to maintain that as I go. So those are your overhead marches, and it's great for training upright core strength and stability. You don't always need to be doing core exercises on the ground. This is a great movement to try and train endurance of those abs, especially if you're a runner or if you struggle with things like bladder leakage with jumping. The next exercise is a banded overhead press, and really it's like an anti-spinal extension drill. So this is for a client who has a lot of leakage with things like jumping rope and jumping jacks. So a lot of times what happens when we're doing those activities is we end up going again into this like arch position. We're really like chest up when we do it, or jump rope, our arms come back behind and we fall into this extension pattern, lack of neutral pelvis, lack of core stability. So this is going to help us strengthen that position to bring us more forward, okay? And I can give you that cue all you want. This is the key in getting a very long-term strengthening program from a pelvic floor physical therapist is you can get the cue to do this all day long, but if you don't actually strengthen those muscles, it's like you want it to be automatic. You want your body to do it naturally, and the only way to do that is to strengthen the muscles that bring you here. It's not enough to just keep correcting yourself over and over for the next 10 years, okay? We got to strengthen. So this is going to help us do that. So we're going to come down on our knees. Band's going to go overhead, and then you step out until you feel a good solid pull from that band, especially when you're overhead. You want to feel like it's pulling those arms back behind you. So our goal here is as I press that band overhead, right? It's going to feel like it's going to pull us back here, but we're going to use our core to stay a little bit forward. So we want to think about draw a line from your rib cage to your pubic bone and think about connecting that line and not letting, like if there was a string here, not letting it break. We don't want to stick that butt out. We want to hug those hip bones together. And you also don't want to overdo it where, again, we're like clenching that butt forward or slamming those ribs down. We want to find enough engagement to find a stacked, controlled posture, but don't overcompensate with all those muscles around and try and get too much activation. So we're here. I'm going to exhale, hug those ribs together, stitch those ribs, stitch those hip bones, and let it open my shoulders up. I want to finish like almost behind my ears. Open those shoulders. This is good shoulder mobility drill. Exhale. Nothing changes through my spine. Nothing changes through my pelvis. Okay, I allow that stretch to happen. Those ribs are obviously going to move a little bit. We are going overhead, but I just want some sort of connection through my core in the front here, again, to avoid here. We don't want this to be our natural pattern or just arching those ribs to get overhead. Exhale, stay stacked. Feel those abdominals working the whole time and just allow the band to pull the shoulders, not through your spine. So again, this is a great drill to train anti, right? So our body wants to extend and we're using our core to stay more in that flexion position. And also just good to an overhead opener if you struggle with overhead lifts pulling you into that position. Our last exercise today is split squat, like mini split squat jump switches. So this movement is, this is for a client who is a runner who's wanting to run without peeing her pants. And we've done a little bit of core work already. We've kind of worked on posture. She's looking better there, and we're ready to start introducing more impact. So running is obviously impact on the ground, and your pelvic floor needs to be flexible and be able to absorb that. So we're training coordination and reactivity of your pelvic floor muscles, as well as bringing in abdominal control with impact. So we just stand with our feet about hip width apart. Front foot is flat on the ground, back heel is lifted. So I have a little bit of imbalance here requiring that hip stability. And then I want my arms to move with me as I switch and jump. Because we're going a little bit slower, I want to exhale as I am landing and getting used to, as I exhale, getting that system to kick on. Pelvic floor lightly lifting. I'm not actively thinking about doing a Kegel or holding as much tension as I can. We want it to be a light contraction. But with that breath, we're getting that exhale to train to move with that pelvic floor and react to that impact. We want to work on staying nice and soft through those knees, keeping our hips nice and level so we're not dipping out to the side as we switch, keeping them nice and level, and then getting used to a little slight lean forward versus jumping like this without that core stability. So we want to zip up from that rib cage to pubic bone, nice soft landing, exhale, and just get the timing and coordination of that entire system working together. So as you can see, pelvic floor physical therapy should consist of many more exercises besides just simple Kegels or bridges or clamshells. We got to get up and get moving, train different movement patterns according to the individual in front of us. So I always take into account the client that is in front of me, what they're dealing with, and prescribing exercises based on the exercises they want to do, what muscles we need to strengthen, and really attacking long-term strength and wellness and not just short-term symptom management and making them go for a couple months only for them to come back. So these are just some of the exercises that I prescribed this week to my clients according to the symptoms they were having and what their body was presenting. Let me know what questions you have in the comments or which exercises you found were helpful. I hope this helps get some new ideas to add into your routine if you're working through, strengthening your core and different movements. And make sure you subscribe so that you can follow along every week as I show you new exercises and more cues and really improve your overall strength and pelvic health. Thanks for being here. Again, my name is Dr. Logan Lynch, pelvic floor physical therapist, and I'll see you next time.